A message of change, and so far many are listening. Barack Obama is gaining momentum over Hillary Clinton in the Democratic Party's presidency battle. Does Obama stand a chance? What's so special about what he has to offer? And how's he been portrayed by his opponents and the media? This is Inside Story. Hello, I'm Imran Garda. Well, it's just the start of the presidential election process in the US, but Barack Obama is currently enjoying a lead in the polls over the three other Democratic candidates. The road to the US presidency has barely begun, and Obama's confident he has the votes to get him the Democratic Party's nomination and the presidency.
We don't have to yell and we don't have to holler because we've got the votes. That's how we will win an election, and that's why the polls show me beating every single Republican candidate. I beat John, I beat Mitt, I beat Rudy, I beat Fred. I beat them all because we know that they are about the past and we are about the future.
Obama's campaigning on a message of change, and it's one people seem to like. They're packing town halls and auditoriums to see him. An endorsement from one of the US's most popular celebrities is helping too. Media mogul Oprah Winfrey has given Obama her stamp of approval and has been rallying the crowds for him. This December campaign stop was so popular it had to be moved to a stadium.
Is he the one? South Carolina, I do believe he's the one to bring us the audacity of hope. Barack Obama!
The politician who makes crowds scream was born in Hawaii to an American mother from small-town Kansas and a Kenyan father. Obama celebrated those African roots in a trip to Kenya in 2006.
I am so proud to come back home.
Obama attended some of the US's top universities and became a civil rights lawyer. In 1996, he was voted into the Illinois State Senate, and 8 years later, Obama won a seat in the US Senate. Obama's been on the national political stage for just 3 years, and it's that relative inexperience and short record that makes some competitors question whether or not he's ready for an international role. But that outsider role is one Obama hopes might help him become president. Well, joining us to discuss the potential of Senator Obama's political future are our guests in Washington, D.C., HAMZAWY, Senior Associate at the Carnegie Endowment, and in Paris, Zachary James Miller, member of Democrats Abroad and coordinator of Americans in France for Barack Obama. Welcome, gentlemen. Mr. Miller, if I could start off with you. Change is the word that figures mostly in Barack Obama's campaign. He's obviously got some responsive ears for the moment.
It's true. I think that, that's what Americans are looking for right now. We're in a dire situation, I think. A lot of people feel that way, the economy and whatnot. And I think most people are looking for positive change, Democrats and Republicans.
Amr Hamzawi, does Barack Obama's success so far say anything about a possible changing of the face of American politics?
Well, yes, it does. And I do agree with the first speakers that we do have a great constituency for change in America. People are quite tired after 7 years before the end of this year, 8 years of the Bush administration, and are really looking for a different kind of politics. And Obama seems to have been very successful in incorporating this feeling of a great constituency among Americans and in giving it a voice, and in a very charismatic way. So maybe, yes, we are approaching a critical moment, a critical turning point in American politics, where we might see American voters across the spectrum, Republicans, Democrats, voting not based on conventional electoral preferences, but voting for a candidate who seems to get this message across, a message of change, domestically and abroad.
It's interesting that you mention Republicans and Democrats. I want to pose this to Mr. Miller. He calls himself post-partisan. Is he genuinely someone who can sidestep by partisan politics, or is that too idealistic? Because many critics have said that's quite impossible.
Well, you know, I don't think it is. I think we've shown in the campaign how much Barack Obama's message is appealing to Republicans, even former members of the Reagan administration and the Bush administration. And I think we're getting a lot of, you know, from personal messages that I receive, people who are attending our meetups here in Paris, we find that a lot of them are either independents or Republicans who want change and feel that Barack Obama embodies that change. It's amazing. It's really a phenomenon.
And he says, quote, "Unlike George Bush, I'm not going to demand an ideological or loyalty test for my advisors." That's a fascinating way of looking at it, Mr. Miller.
Yes, it is. And again, I mentioned that, you know, some of Bush's advisors have also come over to our campaign.
HAMZAWY, Republican Tom Cole of Oklahoma, the chairman of the National Republican Congressional Committee, says about Osama's pledges during this campaign, quote, "It's captivating, it's intoxicating, but it's not going to last." What do you think are the chances of his campaign fizzling out? Because it's not too uncommon. We saw it with Howard Dean in the past, particularly in 2004.
Right. I mean, here we do have two opposing opinions. One is basically the one which you just referred to, that it's a momentum that has been generated over the last weeks, primarily after Iowa. It might carry Obama for a while, but it will not last for a long time. And the second opinion, which states, and I do believe that the second opinion has greater chances to prove real as of now in the U.S. A second opinion, which is based on the fact that Barack Obama is the only candidate in the Republican and in the Democratic field which seems to be very effective in reflecting this need across the spectrum in the U.S. for change, and this might carry him for a very long distance, might carry him to get the Democratic nomination, and even might carry him in the general elections in November 2008. So it really depends. Are we in an exceptional moment in American politics and history, or are we in a moment which can be analyzed and approached by conventional wisdom? If we are in the first category, maybe Obama and his momentum will carry him into winning the presidential elections. If we are in the second moment, maybe not. Maybe it will last for a few states which are outside sort of the big centers where the establishment of the Democratic Party will come back and get Hillary maybe to be at the forefront.
Let's bring in our other guest now in Cincinnati, Ohio, John Kenneth Blackwell, a Republican and former Secretary of State of Ohio. He's also the Ohio chairman for George Bush's re-election campaign. Welcome, Mr. Blackwell. It's good to have you on the program. I know it's early days, but you can't ignore the impact that Barack Obama has made.
Oh, absolutely not. I think on the Democratic side of the aisle, he's a phenomena. And I think it's brought out the worst in the Clinton campaign just in the last 2 weeks. I saw one of the ugliest campaigns that I've seen waged in modern time. And I think that's because, one, he gave them something to think about. They had basically thought that he was a up and down flash on the political scene, and he turned out to be a long distance runner. I think this is going to, on the Democratic side, I think this is going to be quite a race.
And what about young Republican voters possibly swaying towards the Obama camp? Does that worry you?
Oh, well, no, it doesn't worry me, and there's no indication that that is what is happening. Right now, where he is mining voters is on the in the independent category. You know, so you might have some independents that traditionally lean Republican who might be giving him a second look, but young voters, middle-aged voters, older voters who are, you know, Republican ideologically, you know, are not going to vote for Obama. They're going to be mindful of his pork spending, tax raising, defeat-embracing agenda.
But the fact that he's been so successful with this change agenda, do you read it as a scathing indictment of the Bush administration and all its policies over the past 8 years?
Oh, absolutely not. I think every 8 years or so, you get that phenomena where folks want to turn the page, go to the next scenario. Look, let's be clear. I think there are interesting subtexts here in this campaign. You have former ambassador, UN Ambassador Andrew Young, who endorsed Hillary Clinton. You have Jesse Jackson, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, the Reverend Al Sharpton, who have at least, played footsies, with the Clinton campaign. What we see now is that their leadership is being questioned. And I don't think that many of the African-American voters that are key in Georgia, South Carolina, a fourth of the Democratic voters in the state of Virginia are African-American. I don't think that they are lining up with Mr. Obama just because he's African-American. I think they're lining up with him because he represents a turning of the page. So I think the subtext that's very, very interesting is to see the realignment of the Democratic voting blocs within their party. And I think, the challenge for the Republican candidates, particularly John McCain, is to hold a sizable portion of the independent voters in the Republican category. And that's going to be very much in play in New Hampshire.
Zachary James Miller, some members of the German press, I'm looking at some of their snippets, have made comparisons of Obama with JFK. Don't you think that's a bit premature?
It might be, but that's what we've been hearing. I started the Obama meetup here in Paris almost a year ago, beginning of February. And some of the first responses I got were from older Americans who, in their 60s and older, who made that very same comparison. They said he reminded them of JFK. And, that's what we're getting. That's what we're hearing.
All right, let's go to Ahmed
Hamza.
Okay. Continue.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just want to disagree with Mr. Blackwell's information. I think that there's not only a realigning in the Democratic Party, but in the whole of American politics, not just Democrats, but Republicans also. Republicans are seeing that they're in a disarray. They don't have anyone that they're really solidly behind. And I think, you have to face up to that. It's a really bad situation for the Republican Party. And I think that's giving us more power, and it's also giving the Obama campaign a boost from not only independents, but also from Republicans, young and old.
Amr Hamzawi, respect from the Republicans, do you agree?
Yes, definitely. It's a generational issue. I mean, I do agree with what was just said, that among young Republicans or independents who have been classically, traditionally leaning towards the Republican Party, yes, they do respect Obama for the same reasons which we just discussed. On the second hand, older generations among the Republican constituencies, and here there is a difference between urban and rural areas, but older generations in general are still oriented into a Republican candidate. Maybe they have a hard time choosing among one of the candidates in the Republican field, but they will definitely vote for a Republican, not for a Democrat, who appeals to the independents and undecided voters. Final point is what we have seen in the US since 2000 is that presidential elections as well as congressional elections are decided within these segments that are classically identified as undecided voters. The independents play a great role, and this is why Obama has a great chance to make it should he get the nomination of the Democratic Party.
All right, gentlemen, don't go away. Time for a short break. When we come back, we look further into Obama's position on key issues of the election campaign. Do stay with us.